Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Nicola Donnelly, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Able Seaman Courtney Taylor. We warmly welcome the family of Private John Francis Hogan, whose story will be told shortly. We also warmly welcome one recruit training unit from the Royal Australian Air Force Base in Wagga Wagga, New South Wales. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operation for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private John Francis Hogan. John Hogan was born in the Adelaide suburb of Norwood in 1882. Known as Frank, he was the fourth of 7 children born to John Hogan and his wife Catherine. John Sr. had been born in Bombay, India, and served in the East India Company Bombay Artillery until he relocated to Australia with his family in the 1860s. By the time his children were born, John was working as a court bailiff in Adelaide and Port Augusta. The family remained based in Port Augusta for most of Frank's upbringing. He attended the Sisters of St. Joseph School before finding work as a chainman on the railway between South Australia and Western Australia. Frank was also a well-known member of the local community, playing for the Port Augusta cricket team and joining the local rifle club. Frank's father died in 1909, and he and his siblings helped to support their widowed mother. Frank Hogan enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 16th of July, 1915. He was assigned to the 11th Reinforcements of the 10th Australian Infantry Battalion and commenced his initial training outside Adelaide. Private Frank Hogan departed Adelaide in the troop ship Benalla on the 27th of October in 1915, bound for Egypt. Soon after arriving in Egypt, Hogan fell ill. He was admitted to the No. 4 Auxiliary Hospital in Heliopolis, suffering from mumps in mid-January 1916. Having recovered from his illness, Hogan was posted to a training battalion in early February before being taken on strength of the newly formed 50th Battalion at the end of the month. While in camp with the 50th Battalion in April, Hogan fell ill again. He was treated for bronchitis, but returned to duty 5 days later. Having spent the first half of 1916 in Egypt, the battalion departed for the Western Front in early June. Arriving in the south of France, the battalion was quickly introduced to the brutal realities of trench warfare, manning the front line outside Fleury by early July. Hogan was hospitalised for a 3rd time in late July 1916, being admitted to a mobile hospital with influenza. He remained until early September, missing the 50th Battalion's heavy casualties from their role in the Battle of Mooncay Farm in mid-August. Hogan spent a month preparing to return to service. He rejoined the 50th Battalion in the northern France in early October, where the men were training and resting behind the lines. He was sick twice more over the bleak winter of 1916 to 17, spending a week in hospital with influenza and bronchitis in late October, and 6 weeks recovering from trench feet at the end of 1916. After a winter of alternating between frontline duty and training and labouring behind the line, the battalion participated in the advance following the German retreat to the Hindenburg Line in spring of 1917. To delay Allied troops, the German fortified numerous villages and towns on the approaches to the Hindenburg Line, which advancing soldiers would have to overcome. One of these rearguard towns was the village of Nobroy, which the 50th and 51st Australian Infantry Battalions attacked on the morning of the 2nd of April, 1917. Although the men of the 51st advanced quickly past the North Village, the 50th Battalion advancing from the south encountered much heavier German opposition. Owing to the thin Allied barrage, the German defenders were able to open fire on the men. By the time they reached the 51st Battalion, they had suffered heavy casualties, 360 men killed in action, wounded, or missing. Among the 96 men known to have been killed in action was Private John Francis Hogan. He was 34 years old. Hogan's sister Mary also served in the First World War, working as a nurse in London and on transport duty to Australia before being repatriated home in 1918. Hogan's remains were buried at Quent Road Cemetery in Bussy, France, following his death. After the war, an imperial graves headstone was erected over his grave, bearing the personal inscription selected by his grieving family back home. His duty nobly done. Rest in peace. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photo is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private John Francis Hogan, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.